Very fortunate. And I mean, yeah, this move after queen c5, I think this was one of the first moments when I had just a couple of seconds left to make my move when I played king h7, which I think, practically speaking, you know, not a bad move. The idea was if she plays queen f8 here, then I have rook to a8. And
defending the position.
Right, and everything. And look, there's this cool line, this deflection doesn't work.
Right, we did point this out in the broadcast.
Okay.
After queen takes, you can't take that one.
Yeah, that d pawn is in the way.
Well, really a tremendous fight. And your main rival, Anna Zatonski, won her game.
Right.
So now, for the first time, since it's been 0-0 actually, you guys are now tied for first.
Other than
deja vu feelings?
Actually, we were tied first, I think, after 3 rounds because we had both had 2.5. So now we're tied again.
That's right.
So it's not that unusual of a situation. Yeah, I mean, I expected Anna to win. So the fact that we're tied, that's kind of a normal occurrence. You know, we've still got 4 games, and I still my game with Anna coming up.
In round 8.
Yeah. So there's a lot to look forward to, and I definitely feel rather fortunate that I saved this game. I mean, I blundered, for example, this move, rook e7. That was you know, I don't know what was going on here, but I, of course, completely missed this move. And there were a lot of things that I could have missed in this game and just lost right away. And I'm not very good with 3 seconds on my clock.
Why do you get in time pressure all the time? Is that increment is so enticing when you get in time pressure?
This is the first time out of 5 games, Maurice, that I mean, yesterday I won with 40 minutes on my clock, but I haven't been into any time pressure in these games. Really, only this is my first game, and it was just a kind of a tough game, you know. Indeed. It was pretty balanced, and I mean, it was the first game where I wasn't, where we had a real fight, you know, both ways. But yeah, I feel fortunate that I didn't blunder and didn't have to suffer much to make a draw in the rook end game either, because yeah, it was pretty easy to make a draw, and it's nice not to have to suffer. Well,
good for you, and we wish you the best in the rest of your games. Good luck in the rest of the championship.
Thank you, Maurice.
Grandmaster Irina Krush, after surviving a barn burner, she has 4 strong rounds to go, but she's still tied for first. Back to you guys.
Great game. Just great game. Good.
Very exciting.
Yeah, all 3 results are possible. Mix of tactics, strategic play.
And endgames thrown on
endgames, and also even opening, both players trying to outfox one another in the opening as well. So that game had content, as we would say.
That's right. And now we've got people suffering. So Irina said she was glad she didn't have to suffer much, but as we pointed out, Ramirez is suffering against Jacobian and probably going to suffer his way to a loss.
Right. That's.
We didn't like his chances to hold on here.
That was my thinking as well. But he didn't. I'm a little surprised that VAR didn't go for that position with a trade of rooks. I thought that getting the rooks to d8 and bishop to c5, that would have been a very fine and clear continuation for white. He's put his rook on g2 when his rook is on d2 and this rook is on d6. This knight is basically frozen. So the one thing that Ramirez is just dreaming is that he will be able to one day bring his knight to e5. So the one thing that VAR should definitely not allow is for that. On the other hand, VAR might be thinking that with his rook on g2, he could play for h4, h5, trying to undermine this pawn on f6. That looks a little fanciful to me, and I do see moves are being...
Yeah. VAR tickled the bishop on c4 with rook d4, and Ramirez instantly played bishop b3 because it was forced.
Okay.
If he played bishop to b5, bishop a2 check would be
fatal.
Extremely nasty. Which just goes to show the power of those 2 bishops, right?
Well, let me just show that to our audience. A bishop b5 would be a very unfortunate embarrassment to the king. Nothing to be done here except to resign. And now I'm just wondering, is the bishop running out of squares, though, Jen? Can't VAR continue to harass the bishop? Where is that bishop going to go?
That's a good question, because the bishop a4, bishop a2 check is exactly the same variation.
Precisely so. Oh, my. Now this looks
looks
instantly,
kaput, huh?
instantly winning.
Wow.
So-
All right. Well, maybe we'll see this one. Well, actually, this did happen, and Ramirez has played G5.
G5 check.
So
Check is good.
the idea is now that if the king were just to slide away, bishop A4, and now bishop A2 check, oh, king G7 at least.
Ah,
Hanging on.
So the move G7, G5 has given Black's king a square.
We're not
in other
saying
words.
we like it for Black.
No, nobody likes it for
We're
Black.
just saying maybe not immediate resignation, but we'll take a look and see. We've got Anna Zatonski winning and now tied for the lead with Irina Krush. She is with Maurice Ashley.
Indeed, with four-time champion Anna Zatonski. First of all, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
You had a pretty dominant win in this game. Were you surprised by the way she played the opening, trading off all the pieces on F6 and not getting much out of the white pieces?
Yes, I was surprised, and I think she didn't know this opening, and Bishop E7 was probably a new move for her.
Really? Did she expect you to play the French at all, or not?
I think she expected me to play French, but even playing French, I could play like so many variations. I played Bishop E7 last time, if I'm not mistaken, 12 years ago, and I'm playing so many other different variations. I think it just she didn't expect this Bishop E7, and I would like to thank my husband Daniel Friedman for recommended me this line. Yeah, it worked out very well. Yeah.
It's nice to have a grandmaster for a husband, at least sometimes.
Yes.
Indeed, you got a great position on the ope. It looked like she might have had some fighting chances, but she just lost a pawn and got a bad position when you took on G2, I think is the moment.
I think she blundered. She didn't see Bishop G2 probably, because she could sacrifice a pawn and might better version with some compensation. She could play, I think she couldn't defend the pawn already after Queen H4, but could have better position with more chances.
Indeed. So now you're tied for first with your main rival, Irina Krush. You guys don't play until much later in the tournament. How does it feel to be right here? You guys have been here, it feels like 8 or 9 times already.
Okay, so nothing yours, more or less the same, and I will try to concentrate on future games. Like you saw, we can make, before our game we will lose some points, like I already mentioned in my interview. And I will just concentrate on game against Camila tomorrow, even if she's not in very good shape, she's still very strong chess player. So I'm concentrating on game tomorrow, and then in 3 days I will think about Irina's. And by the way, I would like to give credit to Camila, that I think she's, her title is highest in this tournament. She was a junior world champion under 20. So it's I know we were US champions, but still this title, it's very valuable.
Yeah, world champion title
yes,
is
and,
quite a bit. So what do you think about your game tomorrow? What's your record against her?
Yes, I don't know. I will prepare and I will take it as seriously as I can. So.
And your record against her? Do you know?
I don't know. We did quite a few draws, I think, and I don't remember if I lost any games. So, but we did quite two draws, and I think in 2009 I drew her the only one draw one, and she took second place. I took first, and she took second.
Just going back a second to this great rivalry, because it really has been something for the books. This era in U.S. women's chess will be remembered as the Anna and Irina era. I mean, she's got 5, you've got 4. Do you come in with some feeling like maybe you'd like to at least get your 5th one as well?
Yeah, of course I will try my best. Of course, yeah. Yeah, it's very important for me also to take first place, and I will try my best. I will try to prepare, to be in good shape, to be very motivated. I think it's also very important because I'm not 18 anymore, so I need to be very motivated to play good chess.
And I suspect your husband will be helping you some more as well.
Yes, of course, yeah.
How do you guys communicate, phone or Skype?
It's either Skype or phone, yeah, mostly Skype. And, yeah, sometimes I disagree with him because I'm not feeling like I'm gonna play this, and we are talking. And of course, like I said before, he never encouraged me to play first move e4. And as you could see, I played e4 and beat Tatev, very important game. So
but we had
a bit conversation before the game, yeah.
But this time you did listen to him and it worked out.
Yes, yes. But sometimes, sometimes I don't listen to him, and it's not very good. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, and good win, and we wish you the best in the rest of this tournament.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Anna Zatonski doing her thing. She's nothing new to her, and she's tied for first with Irina Krush. Back to you guys.
Personally, I think Daniel just got lucky on this one. I mean, he just chose the right defense and gave Anna a good idea, and it worked out brilliantly. Normally, it doesn't. When I try to make opening ideas for my wife Yvette, normally they rebound and they're like, "Why did I make such a suggestion?" So,
well,
G.
The woman tends to be right. Isn't that
Oh,
what they say?
tens? No, it's certainly right. Of course, she's certainly right.
So G5 check, and now
Yeah,
I guess
I'm
Verozha Kobian
puzzling.
might have been caught by surprise by this move, but certainly he doesn't want to take en passant here because
Right.
that will allow the knight out of his cage, and it seems that there are, well, that position probably isn't bad for white either. There's got to be way better options.
Right. You know, that knight has been passive the whole game, so allowing it to enter the fray with a check, that's really not
No.
nice.
So instead he might be thinking about which square would he prefer the king to go on, F3 or G4.
The reason I'm picking G4, and it may well turn out that F3 is the proper square, is I just wanted to keep contact with the bishop and to keep that extra tempo going. So I was thinking that you would have a situation like bishop A4, and now whether I should play rook D6 or not, I was looking at a line that went rook D6, as in give me the pawn. I'm aware that there's an exchange sacrifice, by the way, that I haven't figured out the ramifications of. But in case of knight D7, one option I thought I would have is that I could bring this bishop to the E6 square, and that's probably why black, in fact, should sacrifice the exchange, and this exchange sacrifice might be just fine, in fact. So a tough decision, actually, for a VAR, and a key moment here after the move G5.
Only move.
Only move, because everything else was just terrible. So again, the exchange sacrifice probably is enough compensation, just because I don't really have a very good, well, how is it?
So you want to get self-mated?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go in there.
Not king h5. That would be a mistake. Checkmate. King h3, but I'm... this is weird, Jen. I'm not sure here, because I'm a little bit worried that this king, after some moves like check, could find itself... Well, again, it's not that bad. Well, at some point I have to play knight d7 just to protect my pawn, right? And it might be enough for a draw. It might be enough for a draw.
But white definitely on top here.
Yeah, it would
But
seem
a
so.
nice saving idea here by Ramirez to keep things a little bit complicated. And we've got a move. First of all, it seems that he's played none of the moves that we considered.
He didn't play king
So
g4.
he didn't play king g4
He
or
did-
king f3. He played king e3.
Oh, really? Okay.
And we've got Maurice Ashley for his thoughts on this game.
Well, looking at it with Houdini, it looks as though VAR Akobian missed a very powerful continuation. Yaz, in your line after king to g4, this move, bishop to a4, you were wondering, how can you start the attack on this pawn? Well, the key is to get the king out of there, and guess where you need to go? Into the heart of the position with the move king to h5. This move would have cemented the advantage more so than the other line. Why? Because if black tries to defend with this move rook to d7, white can now break open the position with this move h4, and suddenly white has all kinds of possibilities with his rook having effect, his bishop opening up on this diagonal, the pawn structure about to crack for black. So this is the line that Houdini liked. It's not totally over, obviously, but still very nice for white to see the game opening up with those two bishops on the board. Black could have been in serious trouble here, but Akobian played a different move. Here he played the move king Let's see, after g5, he played the move king to e3, which does give him still a bit of an advantage, but his advantage has dipped from over 1 now to only 0.66. That means about a little bit more than half a pawn, which in layman's terms just basically means he has a bit of an edge, but not as much and as significant than he had in the other line. Back to you guys.
So the move king f4 to e3 dropped half a pawn? How did I lose half a pawn? I mean, I understand losing a pawn, but I lost half a pawn with this move.
We don't expect the players to follow all the computer lines.
No.
Some of them are counterintuitive and...
Well, it's interesting that Ramirez was able to get in the shot g5 check at just a moment that he really, really needed it. Because I was thinking at some moment that VAR could have probably played h4 on a number of occasions, not necessarily with the idea of h5 and h6, but simply h4 with the idea of just keeping that g7 pawn firmly cemented. And after king e3, by the way, that is a nice point, isn't it, about the move g5, what Maurice was saying here just a second.
Oh yeah, it's a very lovely idea.
I mean, the king gets in a kind of a pocket. It looks a little bit funny at first. You know, you might be worried that after, say, king g7, there'll be something like rook takes e4 and a bishop e8 mate, right? So you intuitively don't want to stick your
that's what I meant by
neck in
saying
your king in the noose, yeah?
It's not easy always to play the computer recommendations because they don't take into consideration that feeling that, like, if you could drop a rook at h4, it would be game over.
Right.
Or bishop on e8.
Right, exactly.
And those instincts that we develop are usually for good reason, but of course they're just instincts and principles. And
right. That work the vast majority of the time, but when those rare occasions that our instincts are wrong, it can cost us half a point.
Exactly. And we've got some news on the Behind Sky Team Melikina game. Will Camilla win her first game of the tournament, as her friend Anna Satansky pointed out, former World Girls Under 20 champ?
Well, it doesn't look like it in this game because she has allowed the advantage to slip, and it looks as though she's the one who's trying to defend and maybe make a draw in this game. Look what happened here. She had been up a pawn for quite some time. It was a Benko gambit from the opening, and so she had tried to solidify this a pawn that's been sitting there forever. And in this moment, she decides on the maneuver knight to a3. She didn't like her knight being wayward in this position, but it turns out to be the wrong idea because of this move, queen f3, posting the queen in a very powerful position, definitely preventing this queen from ever leaving, going anywhere. And you have to be careful here. Moves like rook to d3, for example, could be met by the move bishop to e3 out of nowhere. Suddenly, black is completely winning in this game. Obviously, you cannot take the bishop because of queen to f1 check, king up, and then the rook down, bang, and that's going to be game over. So queen to f3, preventing any trades. And the same move would happen if queen to e3. Well, actually, you can't even move this because the f-pawn is hanging. So all those lines are bad. After queen f3, she brought her knight back over like she thought she would. And then suddenly this move, rook to e8. And now this rook ready to post in on the e2 square. And white is looking at the board thinking, what did I do? Because now the position is very different. Again, this time the rook to d3 absolutely doesn't work because of a simple mate in 2, king up, and either piece to h1 would be checkmate. So she had to grovel with rook to f1, and black sees their chance with the move rook to e2. And you know black is thinking, how did this happen? After all this, suddenly I'm back in the game. And now the move d3, and black is happy here. White played the move knight to e5, trying to chase the queen out of there. Queen dropped back to f5, and now knight to g4 and bishop to g7 was played. I should point out, after queen to f5, knight takes pawn is not possible because of rook to d2. Thank you very much. So black with all the initiative now in the current position after bishop to g7. She's trying to get her pieces to come around. A bishop could land on a d4 square. no reason to be afraid now with the black pieces. So it looks like white has frittered away her advantage, and she's going to have to struggle to just even save this position here in the Women's Championships. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Maurice. That queen f5 move, by the way, because I was looking at knight takes d3, rook d2, but that queen f5 move was better than the queen e4 move that we had looked at.
I see, and then the difference is also that after queen a1 check, bishop g7. So
Right.
switch back to g7 and all is lovely.
Exactly.
And we do have one more game that we haven't looked at in a while for Del Garayev. We've got some results coming in the U.S. Women's Championship. Foyger-Zenyuk was a draw. Nii Nemkova was also a draw. So less blood spilled than usual in the Women's Championship, but of course that Abrahamian crush game did not disappoint. As Irina pointed out, it was really the first game where it wasn't one-sided in that, you know, she really had some troubles. She was in fear of losing the game.
Absolutely.
So of course, she had another draw in the tournament versus Zenyuk, but she wasn't fearing death.
Right. All three results were possible in this round, in her game today. And yes, she doesn't get down to like, it's just a handful of seconds on the clock unless her opponent's putting great pressure on her. So it was a wonderful fight, great battle. And
for Del Garayev, looked reasonably balanced. Remember, we saw that Garayev had the two bishops, but Ferdel seemed to have this potential outpost on c5 and a nicer pawn structure to play against.
Right. So we have this position. When we left it, something about these parts, and it looks like Josh is just doing fine. And the bishop would otherwise get trapped, I believe, if he took. And this bishops of opposite color are endings that so often are drawn. It just really looks like the game is heading towards a draw at this point, which is an important result for our tournament leaders, of course.
Yes, because now Garayev can't catch Lenderman, and Lenderman could be in the lead unless Akobian wins his game against Ramirez. So if Akobian wins against Ramirez, we'll have a tie for the lead between Akobian and Lenderman.
Like in the women's section, there's two co-leaders.
That's right. We would have
the
a
open
sweet little
section,
symmetry.
yes, a little bit.
And we've got Maurice for some thoughts on that crucial game, which we're going to keep a close eye on, Akobian Ramirez.
Well, the most significant thing about that game right now is the clock. They're in the sudden death time control with 30-second increments, but look at the clocks. 2:09 for Akobian. The game is still full of fight. He's definitely better in this position. Houdini's even saying that he's way up. The way this sequence has gone, he's got a great bishop along this diagonal hitting this pawn. This knight has to sit here to control this f6 square. Also, the move bishop a2 check could come in at any time. Also, h4 could come in at any time. So a very pleasant position indeed for Akobian. But Ramirez has 21 minutes left on his clock. Tons of time to try to put up a sturdy defense. And how do you play perfect poised chess right at this moment when you only have 2 minutes left? Even with those 30-second increments, it's going to be extremely hard to play accurate moves. So what all Ramirez is going to want to do is just keep it solid for as long as possible, because if he does, not only might he make it a draw, he might even turn the game around on a mistake by Akobian. So we'll take a long look at that clock. Keep a watchful eye, because it's going to be a big part of the finish of this game. Back to you guys.
That's right. So Akobian Ramirez, crucial for today's standings. We've got some questions coming in as our games, we have fewer games, we're going to have time to answer more questions. So it's kind of like at the beginning of the broadcast, your questions can get in because the games are just developing, and at the end of the broadcast, they are as well. So we encourage you to send your questions, comments at stlouischessclub.org, or using the hashtag USChessChamps, and we have chess.com goodies to give away, including diamond memberships.
Exactly.
And one question that came in recently, I noticed that Garayev, the higher rated player in his game, so you might want to pull that game up.
I have, yes.
The Garayev game, the higher rated player played the idiosyncratic opening, the Hippo. Do you think lower rated players should avoid the idiosyncratic, a GM against a super GM, for example, because a draw is more desirable? Or should lower rated players risk the element of surprise just the same as higher rated players? Well, first of all, I think we should avoid using the word idiosyncratic.
For good reasons.
Not to be a hater.
You're right.
I'm totally kidding about that, but I just think that in general, you shouldn't be thinking that much about rating. A lot of times as a coach, I noticed that people are really obsessed with the rating of their opponent, and they change their strategy, their opening based on it. It's occasionally it makes sense, but usually it's a bad idea.
Right.
Play the board, not the rating, and play the opening that best suits your style. And if you see your opponent does poorly against a certain open, by all means use that as a reason to play it. But don't use just the number as a reason to justify an opening choice or not.
Exactly. Sometimes I fell into a trap when I was growing up in the Northwest, and I had become a very strong, what we might call a senior master. In those days it was like 2,400, and many of my friends were 2,200s in the Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, BC area, and I would play some really, really rotten openings because I felt I had to take excessive risks, and that was really silly of me. I eventually cured myself of that habit.
Well, that was good. How did you cure yourself?
I stopped doing it.
That sounds so easy. You know, so many people could quit smoking if they just use that advice.
Ah, good point.
So easy.
So
just
easy.
Stop.
Just stop.
Tell
Quit
me about that
doing
with
it.
sugar. I need that advice with sugar.
Quit doing it. Okay, so in this game at Timor, again, the clock's not as big a factor as the other game. It looks 13 minutes to 10 minutes, but I'm just looking at the position, and I don't see much in it for either player at this moment. Of course, that doesn't mean that they can't still keep fighting away, but it does look pretty even to me.
Maria blitzing out. I feel like that bishop is not really on a square.
Which one?
The bishop that he just placed on f1, it feels like it's kind of like on a half square.
It's a little bit...
It's on f0.
Okay, a bishop too far, huh?
We got another just mention. How Chess Makes You Smarter. Great new article in Men Health magazine that quotes Magnus Carlsen and Tony Rich, the
Really?
executive director here at the St. Louis Chess Club.
How do we do it?
It's awesome. So this article is all about how chess can make you smarter, and it's in such a mainstream magazine, so it's very exciting. And they quote Magnus Carlsen as saying, training your brain is just as important as training your body. It's like a muscle. If you're not losing it, if you're not using it,
you're
you
losing
can lose it.
Right.
And there has been some recent research that tries to suggest, that chess is a good antidote against Alzheimer's. So it's not
Yes.
just about kids.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
also about keeping the brain active for adults.
Mm-hmm.
They also mention you.
Me?
Yeah, they say that the best book for beginners is Play Winning Chess by Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan.
I'm shocked. I'm afraid that I've ruined countless lives with the books I've been writing. But really, wow, okay. And that was from what article? I'm sorry?
That's in Men's Health.
Men's
so Men's
Health.
Health, the kind of magazine where you see like six-pack after six-pack, like, really buff arms. And now there's an article about chess in it as well. So it's
Wonderful.
kind of fitting.
Very good.
Fitting when you have also a world champion who's in such fantastic shape. And
Right.
you see so many of the top 10 players are in really good shape.
They're fit. Yes, absolutely so. What else? What big games?
Well, we still got Varuzhin going strong, and the behind Sky Team Melakina game as well. Maurice, what do you think about that? Anything new?
Well, first of all, maybe we should be showing some buff arm chess players. Yes, I know you do your push-ups, especially after getting mated on the back rank. By the way, are you saying you're not getting mated on the back rank often enough? I know I got mated on the back rank before, so I had to do a lot of push-ups for that one. Well, just getting back to a serious game, this position looks like it's completely turned around, and Baginskaite is no longer with any advantage whatsoever against Melakina, so it looks as though she has to go on the defensive, and her clock situation is going to be the main factor here because she's down to 1 minute and 51 seconds and counting. Melakina with 12 minutes plus, and White has to figure out the defense against the move bishop takes on e3. She could try to trade queens here, but this is going to cost her a piece after bishop to c3. It looks as though this line is maybe close to equal with the king being the first thing to run up the board, but I don't want to be black. I don't want to be white here for sure. So the best defensive move, maybe the most solid, is this move. And after bishop takes, pawn takes, queen check, king up to g2. And it looks like she did play it, which took over the board from me. Let me just get rid of the receiving moves button there. So if bishop takes an e3 now, queen takes here, it looks like she's dead after d2. Pawn's about to queen, but oops, checkmate, back rank. Check that out. You don't want that to happen in the game. So after king to g2, black would have to do something about this move. And then the interesting defense, queen d1, and now king f1. And it looks like she's hanging on by the skin of her teeth in this position. So a tricky position for white. After feeling like she was winning all the way throughout, now she has to find proper defensive moves. But again, Skyte experienced the exact same thing against the youngster in the competition back in, was it round 3? So she doesn't want this to happen to her again, losing a disastrous game after having what looked like a decent position. So she seems, I remember it was with queens as well. In that one, we saw 4 queens on the board. I don't think we're going to see again 4 queens. That would be pretty crazy. But certainly Melikina seeming like she's back in business and in control of this position. Back to you guys.
Quick question.
And we've got a couple of buff arms to show off here. So,
Guns.
Varouche and Akobi, I think actually Maurice is getting set up for the next shot in which he's going to take off his jacket
Right.
and start lifting some weights on the air. That's what's up next for you guys.
Yeah, buffed arms, right?
Our massive female audience is now getting really excited. They're going to get mad at me if I don't deliver.
Oh, dear.
Actually, Varouche and Akobi was featured on MTV True Life a few years ago, and I think they showed him going to the gym. He is really fond of lifting.
Lifting, yeah. All right, we do have some moves. Let me just see what has taken place in our key games. After, boy, they're moving, but I'm not getting new moves on my. I'm sorry. We'll have to go to Maurice because I'm not getting the moves on my monitor. So Maurice, if you could show us what has happened between Akobian and Ramirez.
Yes, it's actually a huge development in that game, guys. Akobian is now winning on the board. After king to d2, bishop to a4 was played, rook to d6, and now rook takes e4, sacrificing in exchange in order to achieve this position, trying to fight back, rook to h3, hitting a pawn, and king to g7, and now rook to e3, forcing a trade, rook takes, king takes, and now king back to f7. A great position for white. The question is, can he convert? Black has won in a pawn, and a pawn for the rook and bishop, so he's down in exchange, but he's hoping that this light square blockade will be too much for white to be able to break through. This pawn is defended by this knight. There's no way for this king to put any more pressure on this. This bishop is invulnerable. It can always go back and forth. Actually, maybe winning is just much too strong a word here as I'm looking at it. Houdini likes the position, but I don't see how white wins this game. Somehow getting the king in. I mean, look at the wall he's going to have to go through. Maybe the king can get as far as here, but how else to get in, Yaz? I'm not sure. With your fine end-game technique, maybe you see a way of making this position work. I think white should have something, but it's really hard to see what that should be.
Good point, Maurice.
And very important, by the way, guys. Take a look at the clock there. Akobian knows only 1:16, so he has a technical game ahead of him. And even with the 30-second increment on his clock, he's down to only 1:07 right now. He can actually make that up quite easily by just playing a few bogus moves, which is unfortunately, in my opinion, one of the minuses of the increment. He could just waste moves just to pad his clock right now, and that's probably what he's going to do, but he's going to have to do it fast. I mean, he's got to make use of the advantage of being able to pad moves. 46 seconds left. That's pretty crazy. He needs to make a move.
Well, he did play h4, and it was responded by a quick h6 by Ramirez. Note that Ramirez playing pretty quickly. I think he must assess that this position is bad, and he wants to try to put pressure on his opponent. Normally, he wouldn't do that. He would relax, make the best moves. But here, it might be his only shot.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So.
Because I'm really watching these. Kobe makes a move. Ramirez is like, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Bang it down. Because, of course, if he thinks, even for 10 seconds ceremonially, if he already has a move ready, much better to play it first, because that puts the pressure back on VAR.
Exactly.
As we call him for short, Varuzhin, we call him VAR.
Sure.
But here, guys, is what I think is the minus of this system. He's got 34 seconds left. He doesn't see a win, right? But he can just start moving pieces. Like, why not just move a piece just to move it, and then make like 4 or 5 moves? My king would be dancing back and forth in this position. King F2, King G3, King F3, King E3. Get a few minutes. Like right now, he's at 14 seconds.
Wow.
11 seconds, 10 seconds, 9. So he got all the way down to 9 seconds, and then he made a move. Sometimes it's not so easy to waste moves, though. Remember, like you say, it's so easy in 30-second increment. Give yourself a couple minutes and like repeat the move twice, but not 3 times. We already saw an example of the hubris of that in this tournament.
Right.
Eswaran, right?
Exactly.
That game should have been a draw. Her brilliant
With a claim.
win.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to keep track.
Yeah. Well, I've actually been victimized myself, and I've also benefited from my opponent's time trouble, that they, just as Maurice said, they're dancing around just trying to gain time on the clock. And I said, well, okay, 3-time repetition. Whoops, really? Yeah. But you're right, Maurice. The knight on D7 is a fabulous defender of the key pawn, the F6 pawn, and the bishop keeping a watchful eye. It's very hard to see how White's king is going to do anything if it runs over here to the king side.
Didn't H4 and H takes G5 make the draw easier, not harder? I'm not sure about H4.
Hard to say there, Jen. On the one hand, H4, when VAR played the move H4, what he was hoping was that he didn't want to see H7, H5 and see his king get locked out, right?
So he wanted an outpost on G4 for his king, rather.
Well, he was thinking that, okay, if I get in the move H4, H6, I do give myself the opportunity of one day maybe trying to invade like this. The problem is, yes, he has that opportunity, but where is he going to go? The king just goes to H5, and in the meanwhile, Black is moving his bishop, shuttling his bishop back and forth between the B5 and the A4 squares, or C6 squares. And I'm having a real hard time seeing how.
You think this is going to be a draw?
Now it feels closer to it, much closer to a draw than it did earlier. I was always worried about these exchange sacrifices. I was always worried that they might be sufficient to hold.
Well, Ramirez played very well, though, to get these types of chances. He really held on in a position that was so dangerous. But that's a problem. You have to take your beautiful position and do something with it, and you only have one option. And it seems that he's consolidated into something that.
I hate to go back and be, in perfect hindsight and all the rest of it, but when we were back in a position like this, I beg your pardon, just back here, I thought that this was an ideal setup for White. That is to say, the knight was stuck on F6, and I really like that idea of, I really like that idea of rook D8, just trading rooks and getting ready to post the bishop on the C5 square. We saw a line like this, and it just looked, horrible.
This is scrumptious for White, for sure. No question about it, and gives no counterplay to Black. A horrible knight on F8. Pieces are just disjointed. It was clear that's what he should have done. But also, Yaz, even in this moment, the moment when he got the chance to play, keep going forward in this position.
Sure. Rook
the moment
G2.
when he got the chance to play rook to king over to G4 after this check, he played his king back. So in this position, he could have moved his king over a long time ago to get his king posted on the H5 square. That would have been much nicer for him. And now all his pieces, 5 of them, the 2 bishops, the 2 rooks, are in the attack, and also his king. So everything would have been here. H4 would have come in this moment, and Black's position would just start to burst at the seams. So I think he played passively. I think the main reason why he played passively was because of the time pressure. And now it really looks like black has created a fortress.
Yeah, it's true.
Too careful. And yesterday we saw a fortress created by Anna Zatansky, who was on the ropes against Sabina Foyser.
Yeah, that was really, really lucky because Queen, if the Queen had come to E1 at that crucial moment, it was Victoria against Victoria? Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, you're right. Many opportunities, Rook D8 opportunity, King H5 opportunity, VAR perhaps a little too careful, happy to win the exchange, now looking, I believe, very frustrated to realize that that was a pretty good exchange sacrifice
now,
that he
if this
forced
game
his
is a
opponent.
draw, that will make Alexander Lenderman the clear leader despite losing today.
Exactly.
So pretty incredible to lose your game and still be in the clear lead.
Yeah.
Now, in Bahanskaiti Milikina,
Yeah.
we've got an interesting little queen dance going on where
Okay, let me bring...
Milikina had the opportunity to make 3 queens on the board.
What?
Not 3, just 3 total. Not 3 of her own, just 3 total.
Okay. So, Camilla doing her best to try to create a perpetual check.
Exactly. So what
in the
just
position.
happened was...
Well, let's just go back and show. When we had left it, there had been a capture on E4 and on E3, pardon me. Queen F2. There is this checkmate in one thread that black has to deal with. King G7 was played, G4, Queen E3, and what you're saying, Jen, is the immediate promotion of the queen would allow a perpetual check.
That's right.
Right.
They can't escape the checks. They can't block them because we have a nice dark square control. Whenever King H6 occurs, we always have Queen H4.
Yeah, it's a real good pattern that we should etch into our minds, these perpetual checks. So when desperation calls, you've got this perpetual checking.
A very important tactical idea.
Absolutely.
It's not all about checkmating. Sometimes you have to pursue the draw.
Exactly.
And we've got Maurice Ashley's got some thoughts on that.
Indeed, Camilla is going to kick herself yet again because it looks like she is completely lost in this position. It's just a question of Alyssa finding the moves. Camilla, remember, she lost the game against the youngster in the competition, Ashritha Eswaran, also because of queens. And here we go again. In this position, we saw that she could have played the move king to G2. This was an alternative for her. And the point being that D2 was not possible because of the checkmate in one move. Well, here, after queen takes E3 check instead, she played the move queen to F2, offering a trade of queens, which of course would lose for black. But this move instantly loses. This is just a blunder. The move queen C1 check, king to G2, king to G7 in this position. Now, Houdini's going crazy. Houdini's saying, that's a queen no matter what you do. After G4, D2, queen E3, black played the correct move, queen to E1, and now queen C3 check. And she's praying for some sort of perpetual, but it's not there. The first move to play is just simply king to H6. And first of all, there are no more checks anywhere on the board. So the only move is this move, check, and check this out. King up the board, and now queen F3 check. Give me that pawn, and another check. There's plenty of checks, of course, to calculate, but it looks as though the king is ready to march to the other side. Now, this is a long calculation that the computer is looking at and checking out all the variations. Not easy for humans to just spot and realize, but we do know that, and she has played king H6, and G5 check did indeed happen. So all Milikina has to do is be careful, take everything that's given, and start marching that king around to the other side. The most important thing, though, is that she has 5 minutes on her clock, so she has a little bit of time to calculate, and Camilla has only 147, but in this position, it's usually easier to play for the person trying to get the perpetual check running, because all you can do is keep checking, because this horsey is looking to go home. So she'll be checking as much as possible is white, while Alyssa will be checking the variations to see how she can get away from this queen and eventually win the game. Guys?
Thank you, Maurice. A nice win for Melikina with this move, King H6 and King H5. And Camilla is going to just hate queen
Multiple
upon
queens on the board, yeah.
queen endings by the time this event is over. So that game looks to be heading for victory for black.
Now, we've got for Delgarev still going on. You were predicting perhaps a bishops of opposite ending at some point, and instead we've got a knight versus bishop endgame. Don't you like Josh Friedell's outfit there? The black and white checks.
Black and white checks.
It looks really good, right?
Yeah.
It's a great choice.
True. White or black? They're good colors, aren't? Well, they're good colors, aren't they? Look at you, white and black.
We have the same outfit, exactly.
There you go.
To catch.
I
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I am so fashion conscious, obviously, boy. Okay, so let's see
We
what
didn't
it.
get the memo yet. We didn't
I
get the memo.
know, I know. Somebody, please send me an email on this. So what had happened is we got our bishops of opposite color, but Josh, I think, is saying, with his decision to capture, he's saying, well, let me explore this position a little. Could white possibly win it?
And now he's remaneuvering his knight. Where does he want that knight to go? The knight looks pretty sweet over on c5, but looks can sometimes be deceiving because it was adequately defended by the bishop on e2, guarding a6 completely solidly.
Right.
So now he's headed for another square.
I'm
Maybe he wants to play knight e3 and then... you think he's going towards f4?
Right. He wants to provoke black into playing the move g6, g5. So, for example, let me just put some bad moves on the position. So I do apologize. I'm not playing well for Timur Gariev, but I just would like to show how Josh is trying to imbalance the position for a second. So something like g5 here, and now he needs to, well, if I take e5 check, no, that doesn't. I would like to isolate these pawns some more, so that I can do a whole new series of maneuvers and get my knight to a nice square, and one day, play for king c5. So chances for Josh, and he's right to explore them.
Yeah, we love to see them try to squeeze these out. So what about the idea of playing knight e3 and then knight to c4 check and perhaps get the king to c5?
That would be a nice one too. If I gave white the opportunity to do that, oops.
We have to assess the pawn endgame, but
You mean-
it looks like my white pawns are quite well advanced here.
So you think this king and pawn endgame?
You need to take a look at that. Oh, because you're just gonna.
I don't know what I'm just going to do. It might be good, it might be bad.
Well, the problem, we have to count the tempos here, right?
Right, g4, king here, g5. How fast am I? I may not be that fast, actually. But maybe I don't have to do anything either. I can just wait.
Well, if you can just wait, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
can just wait.
Because then you don't even have to bother calculating. You can wait until you can
Right.
also calculate king e5. But if this is sufficient, then why should white go for it?
Exactly. But, all right, well, I mean, it's an interesting game for sure. Maurice, what about your insights on this one?
Well, we've been referencing another game quite a bit that is going to haunt Kamila Baginskaite for a long time to come, except, she might have thought, I got rid of those queen issues, it's dead, I got it. And now all of a sudden, it's another queen ending. And we're talking about this game, Ashrita Iswaran, with the white pieces against Kamila Baginskaite. And in this position, with one step away from queening, Baginskaite played the move e3 check, king g2, king g3, e2, and now h8 queen. And we saw the infamous 4 queens on the board. Usually a win for the side with the queens. But in this position right here, black was perfectly fine, no worries whatsoever, until after queen b3 check, she completely missed the move queen to e3, which would not only have saved the game, but given her an advantage. Instead, she played the immediate blunder, king to d4, and this queen trade sealed her fate. In order to stay on this pawn, she would have to play king takes. But if she had done that, she would have lost her queen to the skewer instantly. So instead, she did play in time pressure. After queen takes e4, she did capture with her queen, but then she lost her pawn, and also queen trade is happening anyway, and this pawn being too far apart, too stretched, cost her the game. She had to resign in this moment. Now she's in this position on the board, trying the same thing to fight back with a queen. This time she's on the white side. She's trying to chase this king around. If this king ever finds any haven somewhere in the position over here, the game is over. But there's a long way to go and a lot of maneuvers that Melihina will have to do to not get caught by a perpetual check, and both sides down to 2 minutes and 4 seconds for Kamila Baginskaite, who has white, and Alyssa Melihina has 3:39, and she's bringing her king over, trying to avoid those checks. So we'll keep a close eye on this to see if Melihina can figure it out and win the game. Guys?
Yeah, 3 very tense endgames that we have going on still.
Very tense.
Fighting games. Varuzhan Akobian against Ramirez looks like it's simplified further.
Has it?
So they've played some fast and furious moves.
Before I go to that game, Josh Friedel has won a pawn, but it may have been a mistake for him to win the pawn. This is a really, really strange minor piece ending. In minor piece endings with pawns on both flanks, normally speaking, the bishop is better, but in this case, obviously, white's a pawn up. But on the other hand, black has ideas of his own, playing king d4, king e3 to win his pawn back. Also, he has ideas like g5, g4, so that once he does win the pawn, he can bring his pawn to f4 as well. This is wild. My judgment is, I don't know what's going on in this game. You want to say that white's better because he's a pawn up, but that could be completely wrong. It's going to take just cold calculation to determine who stands better, but I wouldn't be surprised if black is good in this game. It's just a very unusual ending.
And he did play the moves king c5, g4 have appeared on the board, and of course players are going to be in some amount of time pressure, 5 minutes each.
And Maurice, if I can get you to tell me how the computer assesses this one, does black have sufficient compensation for a pawn? Is white even better at all?
Yes, your instincts were dead on, as a matter of fact. Scary dead on. The key move here was king to d4. He should have played this first before the move g5, actually. That king was the power move. You were talking about having a king on that square gives lots of chances. But by playing the move g5 first, white goes back in the driver's seat by playing king c5, keeping the king out of the position. Not that it's so easy to win, though, but the move g4, the computer says, what is that? It doesn't like it at all. What's the move? This beautiful move, knight back to b1, preventing this pawn from being captured right now. And if king takes, then simply knight check, the king goes in, give us that piece, and then b5, and white is going to queen a pawn quickly and win this game. We presume he'll win the game because it looks like there's too much action over here on this side once this queen appears on the board. After knight b1, how does black stop the simple maneuver knight to c3 followed by b5 anyway? This position looks totally lost now for black. He had one moment to play instead of g5 to play king d4, but by waiting a tempo and putting white's king on the c5 square, it looks as though black is completely lost and will go down a second game in a row in these championships.
Wow.
And it looks like Friedel did find the move knight to b1. It's on the board now, and Gareev is trying to figure out what to do, but I think he realizes the danger here that he's in a world of hurt and doesn't know what to do next. And you see his hand hovered for a moment, and then he's back to thinking, and he's probably inside thinking, oh, boy.
He looks like he's turning bright red.
What?
Red and white, oh my.
What a swing, because king d4 just, and I didn't know how to assess the position after king d4. I thought that black was getting really great play, actually. And this move, knight b1, that's a simple move, truthfully, because king takes e4, just walks into this fork, easy winning king upon endgame. If black tries to just waited out, well, guess what? This A5 pawn is going to decide the game. Do we play A6 immediately? I suppose we do, right?
Well, this round is all about players who are at -1 climbing back up to even, right? Josh wins this game. He'll join Ray Robson and Sam Shankland as players who started the day with 2 points and now have an even score within striking distance of the tournament leader.
Wow. Wow.
Guys, by the way, we should mention that Garayev might be getting some comeuppance. Remember in the first round how he threw away his white by taking a quick draw? You know, that's a sign to me when you play a tournament that in your very first round, instead of thinking, you know, this could be the time I put my hammer on this guy right here and show what I'm about, you play cagey, you play a 14-move draw. That shows a lack of confidence. Not the guy who you think is going to be the eventual champion of the event with the white pieces. And now he's actually taken the pawn on e4. But what's that? There's no chance, it looks like there. And Friedel has just jumped on it with the move knight to c3. And it could be that Garayev is going to lose 2 games in a row. If that happens, his chances of winning this championship have been severely compromised. I don't see it happening at all with all those other players leading in the tournament right now. Of course, anything can happen with 5 rounds to go, but this will be rough to come back from.
Wow, I just see no chances. King takes e4.
Yeah, that's lost. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just
that's
over.
just-
That's a time pressure move. I'm wondering what is the clock situation. Actually, he didn't have.
He had enough
He had
time.
enough time to look at it, but you know, sometimes you're just looking at your doom. It's probably not cool just to sit there. But what other chances did he have? His bishop was just awful.
Wow, so a real surprise for me. I thought that this game was heading for a draw for a long time. And Timur stumbling back-to-back games, actually. Wow, right?
And kudos to Josh Friedel, our U.S. Open champion.
Who a deserving qualifier, winning one of the strongest Open events held in the United States.
Was held in Madison, and this year's edition was originally going to be held in St. Louis, but unfortunately, the hotel it was booked for closed.
Oh, hate that.
That was and so instead it's moved to Florida, but it's going to be back in St. Louis in a couple of years.
Let's hope so. So Josh, King F3 was played as expected, and Josh quickly snapped out knight takes e2, and I can't imagine Timur continuing the game for too long.
Here's an idea, though, I looked at,
Played
and
key to
of course
B5.
he's completely losing, but I
Right.
think his only chance, and I was wondering what he was thinking about, trying to get inside his head right here. There's a chance that he can gobble up all the pawns on the king side. That's probably what he's after. If we go to the moment after king takes e2, b5, a
Right.
takes b5, a6, I mean, this is hopeless. It's got to be hopeless. a7, king takes g3, a8, queen, and then king takes h4, and then he could pray that somehow there's a draw in this position. Unfortunately, Houdini's saying that it's mate in 9. But he can maybe hope that somehow he can get out of this one. The problem is that this king could come back, and king and queen together are just going to make it hopeless. But I'm wondering, that's probably what he's thinking in a blitz situation. You hope and pray that somehow you could get a drawish position. And it looks like he is indeed going exactly for that line, trying to make some trouble for Friedel. But I think Josh is thinking, I don't think so. I'm just going to queen my pawn. And there he goes. Bam, the queen has arrived on the board. And now a question of taking the pawn or moving the king forward. Both should somehow lose. His only hope may be that G pawn. So that's probably why he's stopping right now, Yaz, thinking that maybe he could move his king and push the G pawn somehow and make it into somebody. But seems like it's just hopeless.
Exactly. We're about to find out why the queen is the strongest piece on the board. And even 3 connected passed pawns are not going to stop White's victory. I like your move, king d4, very much. Simply king d4, king to e3 looks like simplest to me. In a blitz game, I'd probably bang down queen g2 just to make sure the pawns aren't going anywhere as well.
To keep the king from coming to g3
Exactly.
and pawns from coming down. We got one question from US Chess Champs as we see all these close-ups of the players in the webcam. Our friend Barone from Italy, I believe, he asked, do you know what the design of the pieces they're playing with? It's a very detailed knights and thin and elegant tall pieces. Well, actually the pieces are created by one of our sponsors, House of Staunton. It's a special edition chess set made just for this event. So we love that you noticed that, and welcome to the show.
Really, a shout out to Frank Camerata, I think one of the greatest chess set designers ever, full stop. His creations are fantastic, and these are very special, heavily weighted pieces that actually work with the DGT board, so you don't have to play with those lousy chess sets you see at Olympiads and other events. But these are like the finest Staunton designed chess sets, and the House of Staunton makes the best chess sets in the world. It's just great, and we're so happy to have them as a sponsor. By the way, Frank was here earlier before the tournament was staged because he had to test all the equipment and make sure all of the pawns and pieces work with the DGT boards. Maurice, you have a thought?
Well, it turns out that Camila Baginskaite, with their unlucky game against Eswaran, is now extremely lucky in this one, and seems like she has found her way to perpetual check and will draw this game. In this moment in the game, she played the move Queen to F3 check. She's just lost. Let me tell you, she's just lost here. What it took, though, to win was very subtle maneuvers. King to C7 was the right move in this position that would have kept the win going. And after Queen to F7 check, King to D6, she's well on her way to victory. But actually, no, this is the way she played. My apologies. This is the way she actually played. The move here that she should have played was King D5. And after Queen C4, she could maneuver this king around so that the perpetual check doesn't continue. Hard lines to see this triangulation of the king around this pawn. But instead, she still was winning here. But when this move, King D6, was played, Queen F4 check, she played King E7 and tried to run back to this side of the board. This is not going to work. Queen C7 check. The computer is now saying perpetual check is on the board. Queen C6 check, king over. And as he tries to hide back on the other side, Queen D6 check, King G7, Queen C7 check. And now she can't go up the board because there are too many checks. The checks are just continuing, and the queen can't come back to help at any point because this queen will always snap this pawn off. So it looks like she has chances to save the draw. That doesn't mean anything, by the way. We're just saying chances are on the board now. It looks like Melikina has blown the victory, but with the time pressure, anything could happen.
Wow. That's a surprising turn of events, because it just seemed that Melikina, all she needed to do was play a few accurate moves to get out of those perpetual checking patterns, and she came up with the wrong plan.
She's shaking her head.
She's shaking her head,
now realizing that it does look like a perpetual check in the position. She can feel like a victory in your hands. That really hurts.
And Friedel has won his game against Graev. It looks like that game is finished.
Timur didn't even go for the H4 pawn, which made it very easy in that case.
So no doubt Josh Friedel feeling awesome, winning this key game and getting his score back up to even at the U.S. Chess Championships. I'm sure we'll hear from him in just a bit, but what about Varuzhan Akobian and Alejandro Ramirez? Now, we see that the only way for Akobian to really get anything in this position is if he can somehow attack the f6 pawn twice. Is that going to be possible?
Thrice. Oh, twice. He somehow... Wow. Okay. Am I surprised he was able to make this much progress? And
I'm a little surprised, yeah.
But
this is interesting. So now he's just played this to go to the current position. Now the times are a lot more equal. Varuzhan Akobian with about 2 minutes, Ramirez with over 5, but before, remember, it was 16-1 or something, right? So things are equalizing a bit in that department, and you're bringing us back a few moves.
Yeah, I'm just shocked that I don't think that Ramirez defended this very well. I'm just shocked that he took this bishop. But all right, let's just get to the game position.
And now Akobian needing to reroute his rook because, of course, wasn't doing much on b6.
Right.
And now he's...
So his rook is active, and, well, I mean, white has a very clean pathway to go after this f6 pawn.
That's right. We want to get that to g6, and then you'd have to defend it with the king somehow, but...
With the rook sitting here on the 7th rank, that looks very hard. If Ramirez goes after the c5 pawn, the problem is when the f6 pawn falls, so does the g5 pawn, and
that f pawn is a goner. That one's ready to go.
Right. But hold on, can I?
Good.
Seriously, I don't either. I think that this must be lost. Yes, I don't even want to look at it. I was preparing to give up the bishop for the f pawn and try to get some pawns, but no. And if Ramirez drops back with his king,
but this has happened on the board.
What has happened on the board? King e8.
C5 has been traded for f6.
Oh boy.
Bad news for Ramirez.
So, okay, let me take that back. I apologize. So king c6 was played, rook h6 was played, king c5, rook f6. You're saying...
It looked like he wasn't going to be able to hold on to it. That's the problem.
Yeah, it just seems that way.
And now king b5 has been played, so...
Okay, so I didn't want to look at this, but...
but now we have to.
Now I have to. I was going to say, I didn't see another chance for Ramirez. I didn't see another line of play. I'm looking at the move rook d6 now.
Rook d6 was played, and now bishop to a2 was quickly...
Because the problem is the bishop doesn't have a good square. It has to keep contact with this pawn on f5. But once you move your bishop, for example, bishop to a2, there's this rook b6
now
check.
Rook b6
and rook takes b7. And because your king is caught on the a file, I think white's king is going to be very fast here. Let me just play out
by
of it.
contrast between going f6 and at least letting you get the 2 pawns.
Right. So something like this, I don't know. Shouldn't I just be winning here easily? Just putting out some. I think I'm in time. I think I'm winning with white.
Grandmaster Josh Friedel looking at you quizzically, so maybe have some answers for us on that. And he's with Maurice. They're both making faces.
Okay.
Let's go to them. They
know.
can make all the faces they want. Maurice Ashley with Josh Friedel, who's now on an even score after a nice victory today against one of the pre-tournament favorites.
Exactly.
Indeed. Even seems to be the popular place to be, where all the kids are hanging out. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So the game was weird. I mean, he played this hippopotamus line.
Yeah.
Nothing was exchanged for quite some time. How did you finally break through?
Well, it was, with Timur, it's never simple. So I expected him to do, like in the past, he's actually played very solidly against me, and we had, interesting games, but he wasn't able to do much. So I think he tried to surprise me and play just something. But it was a very strange position because it looks like a very nice hippo for white because he can't castle, his king. But the problem is I have this clump of pieces in the middle of the board, and I found it really difficult to untangle. But the nice thing is that he can basically do nothing without getting checkmated. So I can play like these ridiculously looking slow moves. And eventually I was able to untangle a bit. And but at some point I think I gave up a large portion of my advantage because in the endgame I thought I had chances, but I didn't think I should be able to win.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be a draw for some time. Then all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, what happened here?
Yeah, I blundered this move. When I played c4, I thought I had a huge advantage, but I blundered this move bishop c6 that he played after rook d1.
Show us that position. What move number was it?
All right, where is it?
Was it in the first time control?
Yeah.
So you can just hit the side to make that come down.
All right, so let's see. It was...
Not move 28 to move 30.
It's around here.
Just hit one.
Yeah.
There it is.
So I had this position, and I thought that this was nice for me. My plan was rook d1, which is what I played, but I missed this move bishop c6, which apparently is terrible. But see, I thought rook e8, I could play rook d7, and my position was quite nice. But apparently it's nothing special. So yeah, I mean, I probably overestimated my position. I thought his bishop on b7 was bad. He had weaknesses. His pieces on the king side are less than ideal, let's say. But I guess he can untangle. But after bishop c6, I missed this move, and I thought it was pretty good. But apparently I can play knight d3. But okay, I mean, I didn't see any of this. We were just finishing up time control. So I decided to trade into this endgame, which I thought was, okay, close to equal, but I thought that only I had chances.
Right. Which is always a nice place to
yes.
be. On the plus side of equal,
yeah,
if you will.
because to go from like some huge-looking position to losing is very depressing. So I figured at least here, okay, I'd test him a bit and see if he defended well. And I don't know, I thought that it should have been a draw for a while. And then when I had knight against bishop, I thought it was promising, but it was hard to calculate all the variations where I try to go after his queen side, he goes after my king side with no time. But in the end, I think he just blundered.
Yes.
Let me see if I can find this position.
Yeah, he had King D4 instead of G5 at one point.
Yes, that's what I spent all my time calculating, actually. So king takes c6. Yeah, here I spent all my time calculating king d4. I planned knight b3 check, and I had all this analysis, which I wasn't sure of. I didn't know if I was winning, losing, drawing, or some other result. But he played g5, which was very surprising to me. And then after king c5, he played g4, and I figured he overlooked this knight b1 move, which was one of the ideas I had in another variation, so it was easy for me to find. And after that, I think it's just losing.
Yeah. Wow, great win. I mean, it must feel really good right now.
It's nice to know I can win a chess game, so that much is very positive. So I think that, you know, it wasn't the cleanest game, but at the same time, I never felt like I was worse or anything like that. So, you know, pretty happy with the game and that I was able to win somehow.
So who do you have tomorrow?
I get black against Alejandro Ramirez, I think.
Okay, so still work to be done, but congratulations on your win, and best of luck in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
Grandmaster Josh Friedel coming off a nice win, tough struggle against the #2 ranked player in the tournament. Back to you guys.
Well, I was checking out how you avoid getting killed by a hippopotamus. Of course, Grandmaster Josh Friedel is the expert on this, but apparently you should not try to fight. You should always try to run, because you'll never want to fight.
Right.
But they don't run that fast, so if you run fast, you might be able to escape. So good practical knowledge for all of you guys listening. If you have a choice between fight or flee, always flee.
Right.
Against the hippo.
And try to climb a tree. I mean, hippos are real fast for the first 100 meters, by the way.
Well, they get tired easily now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They can go about 100 meters at good speed. But if they hit you, it's like a 5,000-pound battering ram.
And we've got another decisive result. Alejandro Ramirez has resigned against Jacobian, as we thought that f-pawn is too strong. He's not going to be able to deal with it just with the a-pawn. And Firouzja Jacobian, the tournament leader now, along with Lenderman.
Right.
Love to see this guy. He's really a St. Louis guy.
St. Louis Grandmaster in residence.
That's right. He comes here every couple of months.
Scholastic Chess Club.
And he does videos. He's a very popular coach. So I'm sure a lot of his students are rooting him on. And I think we'll get a chance to hear from him soon. St. Louis, it's been a good day for them, right? Ray Robson winning. We actually had Grandmaster Susan Polgar listening to our broadcast, and she said that she's also listening to Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
Bohemian Rhapsody, yep.
So that's nice. We've got a lot of stars watching our broadcast. And, you know, I actually saw some of the students from Webster, and you see the students from Lindenwood kind of coming to the club and coming to the museum for all the events. It's really a great chess culture that not just when the championships are taking place, but anytime you come here.
Exactly.
You see at least 3 grandmasters over at Starbucks.
I still like this. Susan and I had gone for coffee close by, and the Webster team had gone out to lunch, so we're chit-chatting, and as we get out of the coffee shop, she sees her son, Tom. Hey, Tom. So Tom joins us, and the next thing you know, the entire Webster team joins us. So the whole group of us are walking down, and you know, 100 yards into the walk, Tom, his son, says, "Hey, I'm the only person here who's not a grandmaster." It was really hilarious.
So that's how you feel like when you're in St. Louis, huh?
Exactly.
The town of grandmasters. You got to solve a rook game before they let you off the plane.
You bet.
And yeah, I'm pretty thrilled by this excitement that we've got in the championship. 2 leaders in the U.S. Championship. We've got Jacobian, and we've got Lenderman. And then in the Women's Championship, of course, we have Zitansky and Crash.
Right.
With plenty of players in the championship, particularly within striking distance.
Right. We know that Lenderman's got a tough task with facing 2 back-to-back blacks against the 2 favorites in the field, and and I think actually VAR has played a few of the very strong players as well. So maybe VAR is in pole position here.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Maurice, your thoughts, if you could.
Well, indeed, it looks as though he was drawing and drawing and drawing, and now we've awoken the hippopotamus. He's up. He's starting to hit hard, and he's won 2 games in a row. Clearly, the first game, he defeated the #2 player in the tournament. Now he's defeated last year's runner-up. So Varouj Nakobian, who has never won the title here, is definitely making a run here in round 6, now tied with Alexander Lenderman. So he looks like he's in really fine form. It's nice to be solid and then win. It means that you're not shaky. Although the reality is he had other opportunities. He could be the one running away with this tournament, as a matter of fact, because he missed some chances earlier in the tournament. Lenderman, on the other hand, that loss, although he's tied for first, that loss today, he seemed in great spirits. He's going to have to really bring his A game tomorrow against Kamsky, and then he's got Onischuk behind that, and with the black pieces 2 times in a row. And these guys are nipping at his heels, nipping at Akobian's heels. So I think that's going to be a really tough battle for him. He's going to really have to show it, despite the fact that he's been playing well so far in the tournament. It's really easy. I've seen Lenderman tip over and then keep tipping over when it happens. So he's not the kind of guy who normally loses and then bounces right back with a guaranteed victory. So they smell blood with him. But Varouj Nakobian, boy, he's looking really strong right now.
Well, tomorrow he's going to play against Grandmaster Ray Robson. And we are also going to have a big matchup with Gareev playing against Onischuk, Kamsky against Lenderman. And yeah, we're really going to be in for some thrills tomorrow.
Big battles on those boards. And for the ladies?
Well, in the ladies tomorrow, we see Irina Krush playing against Alyssa Melikina,
who is going to draw today, yeah.
That's right, and Anna Zidhansky playing against her friend Kamila Bahanskaite.
Which she mentioned, and very respectfully.
And those will be the 2 big battles, because right now, those are the ones to watch, right? They're both a point ahead of the field. Tatev Abrahamian playing against Sabina Foiser. So if Tatev plays aggressively and strings together a couple wins, she'll be a threat as well.
Exactly.
And we have Varouj Nakobian now tied for the lead in the U.S. Chess Championship. A big surprise for us earlier in the tournament because he started with all draws.
Right.
Indeed, a new co-leader has emerged. Varouj Nakobian, first of all, welcome to the show and congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
Did you think you were winning all the way through? You seem to have a nice opening setup, but then it seemed to have slipped back a little bit. You had to restart the car.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I had a very big advantage in the opening. I think Alejandro did something wrong, probably c5, and I had a big advantage there, but I didn't play it the best way. I spent a lot of time, actually about half an hour, to try to find the clean way to pursue it, but I didn't see anything, and then I went for it. I always had a slight advantage, and I think that I played well in the end game when I played f4, and I was always better, I think.
Indeed, and you played this move f5, which was a really nice move, counterintuitive because you allowed the backward pawn, but I was remembering a game with Lasker way back in the Ruy Lopez days, playing this move f5, and also Bobby Fischer got the same kind of idea to play as well.
Yeah, in this type of endgames, when you have 2 bishops, actually space is very important. So when I played f5, I actually restrict the knight on f8, and now black is actually running out of moves, and then I can put the king on f4, which I did. I wish I would have played h4 first to stop the g5 counterplay. Then I think I would have probably won easier.
Did you miss this move, g5?
I missed g5. I forgot that when I take fg, he goes knight g6. I thought I can go rook g6, but I forgot that I'm no longer attacking that bishop on b3. In other variations, I could do that, but I think even though after g5, it still should be winning.
Did you feel like it was going to be an easy win when you were up in exchange, like that it was just over, or did you think he may have had some chances with the blockade?
Well, I didn't have that much time to actually think about the result. I just, I saw this idea. I think very important move in the endgame was h4 to exchange the pawn, so I can have this entry point with the king on h5, because otherwise he plays h5, and whenever I play h4, he will close the king side with g4. So h4 was very important to exchange, and then I saw this plan that I exchange the bishop for a knight, and then he cannot do much. I bring my king on g4, and at the end, when I played rook c8, this is a key move.
Show us that position.
So here I played. So first I played rook h3 here. So now threatening rook h7 check. So he has to go king g7, because otherwise, if the king is cut off on the back rank, then I simply put the rook on c7, and then I have an entry point with king h5. King g4. That's why h4 earlier was important. So I plays king g7. Now I go rook d3. Now I can enter to the 8 rank. King f7, rook d8, king c7, and rook c8, king h7. I saw the rook h8 idea, but I just repeat one time because he cannot do anything. And then rook c8, king I need the king on d7 here. It's very important because if I go rook h8 immediately, it's bishop d5, and check he has bishop f7, and my king cannot enter. So that's why rook king d7, and then rook h8. So no longer he can play bishop f7 now. So this is already lost because now I check and simply win the pawn. As soon as I win the pawn on f6, then I win. The king is actually well placed. And just the final idea here. Final, I think, important move is rook d6 here, forcing the bishop away from the diagonal so I can check and win the pawn on b7. And here, you should be careful not to try to promote the f pawn. It's because then he can try to make a draw with the stalemate idea. So that's why I just needed to bring my king to the king side first, because then I can
promote your pawn.
Yeah.
Very fine in-game technique you showed here. You're tied for first in the U.S. Championship. How does it feel?
Yeah, I don't even know. I was just playing my game, so I didn't watch a lot about that.
Well, Lenderman lost his game, so he came back, and Kamsky and Onyshuk drew. Gareev lost his game, so you're tied for first on +2 after 6 rounds. Have you ever been in this position before?
Yeah, I was actually leading in the 2009 championship also.
So what do you need to do to keep it going, keep the momentum going?
I just need to continue play well. I'm happy the way I played yesterday after that mistake in the opening, but I think overall I played a good game today. Just need to play well, one game at a time.
One game at a time. We know it's hard. Who do you play tomorrow?
I think I'm playing Ray Robson tomorrow.
Ray Robson, he won his game today. What kind of battle do you think that'll be?
I think it will be an exciting game because Ray plays very active, and I've played him many times, so it should be very interesting.
You'll have the black pieces against him, I assume. What openings normally come out of that?
We played many games. We had a lot of French defense battles when Ray was very young, but now he's much stronger. So then we had some Caro-Kann. So we had Caro-Kann lately, last couple of times, and some French defenses.
You're at 4, and Lenderman's at 4 as well. But you got 2 guys behind you, Kamsky and Onyshuk, who they know how to win, and they're chasing you right now. What is it like when you're the leader and being chased by strong players like that?
I'm not sure. I haven't been a leader that much in this tournament, so it's, to be honest, hard to say. But I'm not too worried about the lead or anything. It's just we're at the halfway mark. So we played 6 rounds. We have 5 more to go, and all the games are going to be very tough, and just need to try to prepare well and play well.
Well, congratulations on your win today, and we wish you the best in the rest of the tournament. Grandmaster Varuzhin Akobian, tied for first. Nice place to be. Back to you guys.
Very nice place to be.
All right, Varuzhin Akobian and Alexander Lenderman. Not exactly what people would have expected at this point in the championship.
Yeah, well, at the halfway point, still a big feeling out process, and I'm more than surprised by Timur's back-to-back losses. I just didn't see that one coming either.
That's right. Well, back-to-back losses for Timur and back-to-back wins for Varuzhin Akobian. Let's take a look at the standings. We got Lenderman and Akobian in the lead with 4 points. Kamsky and Onyshuk just a half a point behind. And don't forget that we've got Kamsky and Lenderman facing off tomorrow. So this could be big for Kamsky. He says that he thinks this is the year that somebody is going to dethrone him, but when he plays, he's not going to be bringing that attitude to the board. That's only a post-game interview attitude. And now in the Women's Championship, of course, we have our perennial favorites, Irina Krush and Anna Zatovsky, both a point ahead of the field. Tatev Abrahamian trailing by a point, but with the type of aggressive chess that she showed today, who knows what will happen. You're going to have to join us. We will be here again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I'm signing off. Jennifer Shahade for Grandmasters Yasser Seirawan and Maurice Ashley. We will see you tomorrow for some more thrilling chess in the capital of chess in America, St. Louis.
Good night.